You're listening to the Sass Says podcast. I'm your host, Christie Rocha, also known as Sass. I identify as a woman, a wife, and a mother. That should tell you a lot already. And over the last few years, I've learned the value of talk therapy. I have seen how my inner work not only enhances my own well-being, but also my marriage, my parenting, my relationships. And in fact, you wouldn't be hearing this right now if it weren't for the work I've done. My mission is to debunk the misconceptions and stigmas around what therapy is and who it's for. Let's normalize working on our mental health and seeking help when needed. We've all heard of self-care, self-help, and self-love, but do you often wonder how to actually make it all happen? I do. You'll hear strategy-based conversations with professionals, as well as inspiring and validating stories from women who are just like you and me. Think of this podcast as the weekly therapy sessions you didn't know you needed, with a dash of sass, a lot of vulnerability, and me, relentlessly asking, but how?
All right, welcome to the show. Today, I want to take a deeper dive and follow up on last week's episode number 94 with Tara Brunet. If you haven't listened to it yet, you may want to hit pause, go have a listen, and then come back over here because I'll be referencing Tara, her course, and what we discussed last week quite a bit. So go do it now, and then come back. For those of you that heard it, here we go. As you know, Tara is the creator of Manifesting Dream Body, the course I took on how to tie together the principles of intuitive eating with manifesting your dream body, particularly when your dream body means that you want to lose weight, because that's what it means for me. The first thing that comes to mind right now as I write this and prepare to record this is to ask you a question. Is it okay to have food freedom, to have a healthy relationship with exercise, accept and love yourself in your body, but still want to lose weight? Can you answer that question? Because that is what I've been grappling with quite intensely for some time now. And by some time, I mean literally months. This journey started a year ago when I first learned about intuitive eating. I felt so pulled in and drawn to terminology like food freedom, body freedom, anti-diet culture, aligning nutrition with your life. I wanted all of these things desperately. So I pulled back some layers. I consumed a ton of content, interviewed experts, read books, and opened up to my therapist. I experimented with buying previously, off-limit foods to see how it would feel to eat them. I ordered them when I went out. I ordered them when we got takein, and I noticed, reflected, and eventually learned how to disrupt the negative, guilt, and shame-filled thoughts that followed after I ate those foods. I let myself eat. I let it be easy to eat. And then I started to experiment with exercise. I called it movement instead of exercise. And just sort of let it go a bit. I stopped forcing it, listened to my body, and eventually learned that shoulding my way through exercise wasn't serving me at all. It was creating way more stress in my life than it was helping me. All of this was hard. There have been lots of ups and downs, many moments of feeling like I'm completely stuck and moving nowhere, or even moving backwards in my progress. But ultimately, when I have to type this out in black and white and now record it and say it out loud, I can honestly say that I did that. I did those things, and the work that it took to do those things changed me. I think differently, I behave differently, and I generally have this good feeling, I don't know, this big picture feeling that everything is working and that at some point in the future, this work around my body won't consume me the way it does now. Right now, you'll hear me say a lot, I'm in the weeds of it, but I know I will get to a point where my mindset, food, and body freedom feelings and all the things around movement, I know they will eventually be in a management phase, a maintain phase. rather than I feel like I'm hiking up Mount Everest phase. So, of course, this is where I say, but a couple of weeks ago, I felt like I was in the breakdown that so often happens before a breakthrough. Here's how I know I was in the breakdown. I attended a reunion Zoom meeting with women I was once in a mastermind with. Some of them I knew, some of them were from the previous rounds of mastermind, so I didn't know them. In fact, most of them I didn't know. But when it was my turn to share what I was up to since the mastermind ended, I shared a little bit about the podcast and business and kids, but ultimately I couldn't help myself but to say, I've been on a food and body journey that is consuming me and is a major block in my progress in every other aspect of my life, because the amount of work it takes me to wake up and not hate my body consumes me. It is all I can think about, and I cried, and yeah, it was a thing, and we all had this like kumbaya bonding moment after, and many women thankfully spoke up and shared how they too struggle with, a lot of the same things. But I know when I'm sort of publicly going out there and it feels almost like I can't even, it's like none of us want to intentionally lie, right? So I wasn't trying to, I'm not trying to say that I would have lied otherwise, but obviously it's not really what they were looking for when they said, "What have you been up to?" But it was all I could think to say because it was so front of mind. Anyway. A day later, I drove by a local business with a sign out front that I've driven by 1,000 times. Psychic readings. And, this time I went in. I got a psychic reading with tarot cards. I'll be honest with you, it wasn't the best I've ever had. I haven't had many in my life, but I had one in Sedona about 5 or 6 years ago that still sticks with me today. I can remember what she said, and I'm always thinking about it. And I've seen a medium twice, both of which absolutely blew me away. This one, I don't know. She kind of confirmed a lot of what I already knew. Didn't really rock my world the way I'd hoped, but what it did do was show me once again that I was in that place, the breakdown place. The place where I feel like I'm grasping at straws, looking desperately for answers outside of me that I already know are within me. And then right before interviewing Tara, I bought a pink notebook, a new one. And I basically took everything that I had highlighted in all of the PDFs that correspond with her Manifesting Dream Body course and wrote them on the first couple of pages of this notebook. I don't know, I just felt like I needed to compile the really good parts, the parts that spoke to me and the parts that prompt me to take action. I wrote down the suggested journal prompts and vowed that this purchase of this notebook would be what it would take to finally start and commit to a journaling practice. Well, you know how that went. The notebook sat without any following journal entries for a couple of weeks. I was defeated and honestly terrified that I wasn't, doing the work the right way, and therefore none of the things I was learning in Tara's course would work. I wouldn't get my dream body, or that it wouldn't happen fast enough. Then I interviewed Tara. The biggest takeaway from the interview at the time of the interview was that I needed to let go of the conditions. She helped me to see that the condition I was putting on myself of only when I journal every day will this work is the exact opposite sentiment of what we're trying to do here. That wasn't the only condition I had. I needed to listen to the mantras I recorded for myself every day in order for my dream body to manifest. I needed to absolutely start getting up earlier to walk so that I could listen to the mantras again. And in doing so, I'd be moving and mantraing, 2 birds, 1 stone, and then the dream body would come. That I needed to buy more clothes, because only when I wear clothes that fit do I feel better, which actually is very true. But for now, instead of buying more clothes, I just do more laundry. Anyway, the point is that a mantra or an affirmation that came out of that conversation was reminding myself that everything I am doing is working for me. I love it very much, and it worked for a little bit, I also was reminded of, the other one that I love so much, which is the how is not my concern. Now, Tara's course is meant to teach and guide us on how to manifest our dream body. Really what it is, and what she helped me to see, is that it's not black and white, right? So what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that while Tara has a course on teaching and guiding us how to manifest our dream body, it's not actually a step-by-step, a one-size-fits-all. It's that we create the step-by-step with the guidance of her course that works for each of us. And in doing so, we hold the belief that whatever we create and decide to do for ourselves will be exactly what works for us. Yes. Okay. So that's what I took away from the conversation with Tara when we actually recorded it. So since then, since I interviewed her, a few things happened. First and foremost, I got busy. The end of summer hit, the start of school approached, our Labor Day travels, I'm planning a bachelorette party, lots of things going on, and I felt myself either pull out of the breakdown or just get too distracted to still be in it. But one day while my kids were playing outside, I sat on the chair with a pink notebook and I wrote. I wrote down all of my wants for our life, my life, our house, our experiences, our work, our health, and of course, my body. I followed Tara's journal prompts and wrote and wrote and wrote. I have done it that once, but I feel like now I've put it out there. The universe knows, and it can refer back to my notes in my pink notebook if it ever needs a refresher. And, even though I haven't done it again since then, whenever I think about the notebook and I feel like, oh, I want to look at that again or read it again or write more or write the same things over and over again, even though I haven't done it yet, knowing that it's there gives me peace. I know that the words are written at least once to go back to read. It's a step, and I truly believe that having written it once means it is out there to the universe. So anyway, I feel myself pull out of the breakdown. I use the pink journal. I start a skin and hair care routine that at the time of this recording, I've actually maintained for 3 weeks. I know. Oh my God. And I spent some time thinking about how I'm going to feel on the bachelorette party I'm planning, which happens to be at a beach. Meaning bathing suits, nights out, dressing up, comparison. And I am pleasantly surprised to learn that I feel okay about it. I ordered a few new bathing suits and outfits and feel, like I'm generally going to be okay. There's always the but. In a last-minute effort to get maybe 1 or 2 more things, I went to the mall. And I went to the mall following a long weekend, and I was kind of rushed. And, I went to a store, and I tried on a few things, and there are times when looking at myself, catching a glimpse of myself in a mirror in different lighting than I'm used to at home, and a much bigger mirror and from a different angle and all the things, where my body still has the ability to flat out shock me. I felt myself wanting to avoid looking in the mirror. I felt my eyes averting the image of my body, and I then forced myself to look. I forced myself to truly look, because avoiding it is not helping. And the only thing I could come up with to say to myself about it was, your body does not define you. Your body is not all of who you are, and your body is fine. Right? But I was sad, I was sad. I was frustrated. I couldn't quite pinpoint what I was feeling aside from that. And what happened was I left and I got in the car, and in that sadness, I started immediately to go down thoughts thought patterns that I would have in the past. Thought patterns that of ideas of ways that I could help myself feel better. And so I thought, okay, just go home and start crying to your husband and let him hug you and have this big emotional conversation about it and get it all out. And then I thought, and then order, some really good comfort food and have a glass of wine and watch a TV show and da 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 da. And thank God the drive home from the mall is long enough for me to really think about that and go, is that what you want? Do you want to cry about this? Do you want to have a big long conversation with your husband who loves you dearly, but it's a conversation that you can't possibly put in a short period of time and one that he really can't relate to on this level? And what's eating a bunch of food gonna do for you? And do you really even want a glass of wine? And so I got home and he immediately knew something was up. He asked me what was wrong. I said nothing, we go back and forth. And I was like, there's nothing that's wrong that I could tell you in the 10 seconds that we have before we need to take the kids to bed. And he said, yeah, just give me a little preview. And I said, sometimes what my body looks like every now and then still has the ability to flat out shock me. And he just hugged me and he told me he loved every inch of it. And you know what? We never went back to it because that was okay. That was enough. And we ordered our usual Sunday night dinner. No more, no less. Just completely what I would normally order if everything was honky-dory. And I didn't have a drink because I really didn't want one. And it was okay. The next day in therapy, I was telling, of course, my therapist about the situation. And what I eventually got to was that I feel sad. I feel betrayed. I feel like I'm doing all the things. If you heard my outro of Tara's episode, you hear me talk about how proud I am of myself for having put in a year's worth of work on my body image and my self-love and all those things. And it's like, God, it just still hasn't clicked. It's still not doing the things that I want and believe it can do. And when I speak vaguely of that, it's really just a way of saying, how is my brain still not getting it? And how is my body still not responding? Right? And I said, what's crazy is that I went out and last summer, I went and I bought some new clothes so that I could feel good about myself in a bigger size and the whole 9 yards. And I'm packing for this bachelorette trip, and some of those clothes don't fit. They're too small. And I'm thinking, so not only am I doing the work that's supposed to be really healing and really emotionally sound, and it actually in so many ways feels so good, not only is it not breeding the actual physical result that I want, but I've gained weight. Like, what? I was just really sad. And the thing that kept coming to mind was, I don't want to live like that anymore. I don't want to live like I used to live, where I need to diet excessively. I need to exercise excessively. I need to shame and guilt and berate myself into some sort of discipline or structure around food, around exercise, so that I can be in what I think is a good body, and then to ultimately not be able to maintain it and be in this cycle all over again. That's literally what's been happening my entire adult life. And I don't want to live like that. But I don't want to live like this either. I don't want to live in this physical body the way it is right now. And so I get really, really frustrated. And, the more we were talking, I said to her that the thing that I took now... Oh, no. Okay, so let me back up. Prior to this therapy session, I had listened to the first half of my interview with Tara in the editing process. And so all this had come up. And then what was funny is that in the therapy session, I said to my therapist, Tara has a mantra of, I'm perfectly imperfect. She talks about how when she was first starting this mindset shift, that speaking about her body in an overly loving and positive, accepting way really didn't feel right. So she came up with perfectly imperfect. And for some reason, I didn't love that. It didn't sit right with me. And so I went straight for all of the affirmations that speak to the body that I want. And we realized in the therapy session that I'm trying to skip a step. I'm trying to skip right over to the body that is my dream body. And really, what I took out of listening to the conversation I had with Tara again is that first we have to accept our body for what it is. And the thing about this is that I realized, and you hear me say it with Tara, I've said it in therapy, but it really clicked now, is that I feel like accepting my body for what it is in a way a manifestation. I feel like if I accept where it is, then I'm just continuing to manifest this body, that I'm settling for this body. And so I do this whole thing with my therapist, and we talk about how I need a new version of perfectly imperfect. Is it I am neutral about my body? We're having a little trouble with it. And as soon as I hung up the phone with my therapist, I clicked on the interview for the second half to edit of Tara's episode. You know what I'm saying? And oddly enough, well, not so oddly enough, we talk exactly about this. And she says that exactly that. It's like you think acceptance of your body is like you're manifesting it. And she goes, really, what I want you to hear and understand is that acceptance is a release of resistance. Ha 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 ha. I just did an hour with my therapist on this. And look, I believe everything happens for a reason in the order it's supposed to happen. So I needed that. I needed to process that. But as soon as I entered that therapy session, that was the first thing I heard. Acceptance is the release of resistance. Tara says to me in that episode, the universe knows what you want. Don't worry about it. It knows. When you are continuing to shun and hate the body you're in, that is resisting what's beyond that. That's the wall. So accept your body and see it as a release of resistance. And it was like, oh my God. I missed a step. I completely missed a step. I need to go back and do that. And so, this morning I woke up and I'm telling myself, acceptance is the release of resistance. Acceptance is the release of resistance. And I can get behind that. I can dig that. And now, oddly enough, perfectly imperfect makes a lot more sense to me and feels a lot warmer and fuzzier. So maybe it is perfectly imperfect. Followed by acceptance is a release of resistance, because I feel like I need that reminder. And then, it's funny enough, and I find that this happens. It's a little behind the scenes for you. I went on to edit another show. And by edit, because you've heard me talk about my editor, it just means that I listen to the episode and mark any edits that I want him to do, or I listen for the quotes, and I listen to it to just refresh myself for the conversation. And I edited a show that will come out in another week or so with Medina Alam. And Medina reminded me of a quote by Pema Chodron. She wrote When Things Fall Apart, which I've read, and a bunch of other books that are amazing. And she reminded me of the quote that had nothing to do with what I'm talking about now. She was referring to herself, that something to the sentiment of, nothing goes away until it's taught you what you need to learn. And I'm listening to this all right after another, and that spoke to me. That really is what this is, and that is what my therapist said to me. She said, it's still on course. You're still on course. Like, it's still here. All of this mud is still around because you have more to learn from it. And it was one thing to hear it from my therapist. Now it's another thing to hear it from Medina. And I'm still on this journey because I still have things to learn. And I hate it. And it's taking so long. And and then as soon as I say that, I think you've had a belief about food in your body for almost 30 years and you want to undo it and redo it in a year? Like, okay, sure. That's actually really fast. So anyway, I feel like this is the breakthrough. I'm not 100% sure. But when I talked about being in the breakdown a few weeks ago of almost feeling panicky and manic about all of this, just like I said, the grasping at straws and everything else, maybe this is the breakthrough. The breakthrough is realizing that I've tried to skip a very important step. I've tried to skip over the acceptance. And I'm going to say it here again because I'm not a robot and I'm truly processing this in real time. So acceptance is a release of resistance. Okay, Christie. Okay. Okay. All right. Go check out Tara. Let me know what you think about all of this. Is it hitting? Is it landing? Is it resonating? Let me know I'm not on an island by myself. Send me a DM, send me an email, send me any of your thoughts on all of this and what I'm going through and what you're going through and what you're feeling and thinking. I would love to hear about it. Until then, I'll see you. Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Sass Says is a production of Luann Nigara, Inc. This podcast is meant to be educational and not meant to replace professional therapy or professional medical attention. To learn more about today's show and what's new in my world, head over to sasssays.com. Thanks so much. Talk later.